Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of Breaking the Barriers. I am so delighted, as always, to be here with my dear friend, Red Moon Eagle. Today, we're going to be talking about a gift we share in common that is nevertheless very different because of how it shows up in us. And so I'm very excited to talk about the nuance of the gift of Earth Sense today. And yeah, just talk about this beautiful, wonderful planet and how some of us get to talk to her and be in communion with her in a very special and deep way. So I'm excited. Let's get going. Red, if you would be so kind as to introduce yourself.
My name is Red Moon Eagle. I'm a psychic catalyst, a teacher, and a healer. And this is one of my favorite topics, talking about gifts. So let's get into it.
Yes. So just in case you don't know me, I'm Safrianna and Red, the Queer Spirit Guide. I'm a trauma therapist, a author, speaker, CEO. I do what I do. It's ever changing, as is this planet. So the gift of Earth Sense, just as a refresher, we've been talking in this mini series about foundational human gifts and how foundational human gifts in many things on this planet, such as cats and dogs, have different gifts, right?
Yes.
But the foundational gifts are the most basic level gifts that all of us have some access to, at least one.
Yes.
At least one, to be alive.
At least one. Everyone has something.
Yes. So we've already talked about energy sensitivity. We've already talked about empathy and the nuance of those. And today we're getting into the third foundational gift, which is Earth Sense. So I have Earth Sense Booster is what Red calls it. This is my first time ever having language around it. When Red told me I had an Earth Sense Booster, and I was like, cool. I don't know what that means yet, but then I very quickly figured out what it means.
Oh, yeah, you did.
All of us with an Earth Sense Booster or Earth Sense First have a connection to the planet herself. And we know that she's a living, breathing entity. But my sense of Earth Sense is that it is as unique as every single person that has it, and that everybody picks up on something different with it. And I'm sure we're going to circle back around to literature today, because I sure as heck write a lot about Earth Sense. I'm coming to understand. But yeah, would you share a little bit about those like overarching big differences, like Earth Sense as a whole, and then the main surface level nuance between Earth Sense First versus Earth Sense Booster?
Okay. So Earth Sense Booster, I like to start with that one because Earth Sense Booster it boosts your already foundational gifts. Okay. So either you have empathy, energy sensitivity, or the combo, right? And with Earth Sense Booster, it boosts. That's why I call it a booster. It takes your foundational gift and it goes, hello, here is more. And because it's like a specially packed potentiality package in your blueprint, and you can only access your Earth Sense Booster through the human experience, right? Like it comes with, if you have potentiality for it, it comes through your meat suit. It comes through that connection. You have been gifted a body. You were born via a mother into this world, and you were gifted a homegrown body of your own, right? And that body, if you were gifted that Earth Sense Booster, your body holds that potentiality. It holds that connection. And there are people who do not have it. I think that's probably the thing that confuses those of us that have Earth Sense Booster sometimes, or those of you that have Earth Sense Booster, is that you can kind of feel that somebody should be able to kind of get to where you're at. It's not a conscious thing. It's not you have Earth Sense Booster, I can identify that. Why haven't you opened your potentiality box, right? It's more of I don't understand why you can't get there, but you should be able to get there. And then others that you intuitively know, they can't get there. They literally cannot get there. They can intellectually understand to a degree, but they can't get there. And the Earth Sense Booster is, when I talk to people about, like, I can see it. I have no idea how to explain what I'm looking at, so I don't, because it's a visual felt thing for me. And when I see somebody with an Earth Sense Booster, I'll ask things like, do you know that Earth herself is a conscious entity, is a sentient, self-aware, conscious entity. And an Earth Sense booster person will go, yeah, doesn't everybody know that? Like, because even in their own mind, they have never thought of it that way. They've
Yep.
never delineated that they know that and that other people don't know that, because it's foundational to their beingness when they've opened the package. Now, sometimes an Earth Sense booster will have the potentiality package and they'll know that that is a true statement, but there may be a little trauma, or there may be a little bit of, how did you know that I knew that? Like, they haven't really opened the box yet because they're a little bit like, I don't know what that is, and I'm not sure I want to open that, because it's a booster. It takes whatever you think you know about your gifts and it goes, hello, here is more.
That's a good way to describe it, as the just like, hello, here's more. Like, here's this extra layer of nuance and information. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Earth Sense Booster. And I love my partner. My partner in my life is near and dear to me. He does not have Earth Sense Booster. So there are things that I do that he just kind of goes, why is that important to you? And not because he's not he's very empathic, right? Like, he knows it's important because he can feel the importance with me, but he does not get the whole connection thing. Like, yeah, plants are important. Why don't we just spray chemicals on the ground and kill the weeds? Why are you taking so much time digging out dandelion weeds, right? Like, and I'm like, I go to a place of horror, and he goes, I don't understand.
It's like me
And
with plastic, with people that are like, why are you so flippin' hyper about plastic? I'm like, because it has an environmental impact and it doesn't break down and blah, blah, blah.
right. So there is it's not I think the thing that I came up against a couple years ago was, well, you just have to educate them. I'm like, my partner's very educated on all Earth Sense things. He still doesn't get it.
Yeah. Oh my
because
gosh, yes.
because there's no booster there. There's none. There's nothing in his gift package potentiality or in what he has access to that says this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And Earth Sense boosters know it's a real thing even before they open their potentiality box, but they don't know that they know it because it's never been phrased where they can go, oh, how do you know that I know that? How
Yep.
come I know that that's a truth with a capital T, like I like to say.
Yes.
Okay. So Earth Sense first, that is a totally different basket of worms. And I will genuinely say that something that some of the other Earth Sense First and I have talked about recently is that sometimes I talk about it and people go, oh, I want that. And we all go, all of us in the Earth Sense First group go, you don't. Nope. You think that this is a fancy, fun thing. You do not want this. Nope. It's like thinking, oh, I want a pet alligator because they're so cute. And then they bite your arm off, right? Like, Earth Sense First is the first gift for those of us that have that. That's why I call it Earth Sense First, ESF. And the reason I call it that is because whatever empathy or energy sensitivity someone with Earth Sense First has comes through the Earth Sense First. So we don't have an amplifier because our foundational gift is the Earth Sense First. I do not ever remember a time in my life, ever, that I could not hear Earth herself singing and talking and communicating. I have this bizarre thing that many Earth Sense First people have, where if they stop and still themselves from the freneticness of the world, they have this ability to hear her in a way that doesn't make logical sense. Okay. So there's a conversation happening. There's an undercurrent of a conversation that's always there. And I do not have empathy through my Earth Sense First. So when I learn to talk about gifts, I learn to kind of mask a little bit through talking about energy sensitivity, because that's my strongest earth sense first gift. Well, not the strongest, but it's pretty close to the strongest. But I don't have the empathy that some of my other earth sense first friends have. But I do have empathy when it comes to plants, which is probably the most bizarre thing ever. Like, how do I know the plant is happy or sad or resentful or rigidly angry or sick, right?
Like all of my houseplants,
right.
probably.
Your houseplants have conversations, and it takes a lot sometimes to not hear. Like, there's a felt sense emotionally from plants, like the dryads, the entities who live in trees. I can have conversations with them and have an entire emotional conversation, but I can't know that my cat is angry at me, right? Like, I don't have the empathy for the humans in the meat suit or the animals. Like, I don't even really know any animal entity emotions, but
Right.
I'm tapped into the plant emotions, bizarrely enough,
And
right?
this is just like, to go back to what I said earlier, earth sense comes in as many forms as there are individual entities
Yes,
getting to
yes,
wear it.
yes. And earth sense first is, I think, but not always, because I've had guides tell me that it's not a universal statement, so I'm hesitant to say it, but something I have noticed is that many of us that have earth sense first are very aware of the multidimensional entities that live within Earth's ecosystems. So we kind of know where the dryads are. We know where the in between entities, the little, I don't know, fairies, gnomes, pick what the popular culture idea of what their names are. We're kind of aware of them, like, all the time, even if we don't have names to name it.
Sure. It's that sense, whether you have that sense of seeing or
Yeah.
feeling seeing, that
Mm-hmm.
it seems to bridge between, and some other people might sense, they might know, they might feel a vibration that, like,
Yeah.
they are gonna know that these things exist through some form of information,
Right. Right.
which is unique to their circuitry.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So Earth Sense first and Earth Sense booster. Obviously, Earth Sense first is going to just automatically create a stronger connection to the messages from Earth herself.
Yes. And there's a
For the most
weight.
part.
And I think this is where people, when they get this idealized, I want to have that. That sounds really cool, right? I've definitely encountered a little bit of hero worship over the years that I'm going to cut that off at the knees. You don't know
Yep.
what you're asking for, because the weight of purpose for those of us that have earth sense first, anyone who has earth sense first, I don't care when they are born in time, there is a weighted impetus and a pressure
Mm-hmm.
to help her. Like, so far, I haven't met anybody who's come through with earth sense first that doesn't have this undercurrent purpose drive as a volunteer. Like, they're volunteers and they're here to do work. And
Mm-hmm.
it may seem like a small thing, right? Like, maybe they write about recycling for their town and that's their one thing their whole life, but they're like hardcore. Like, they're going to talk about the landfill, they're going to talk about how people dress, they're going to be a little obsessed with the thing. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a weight, there's a responsibility and a weight that comes with earth sense first. And if you're following your blueprint with earth sense first, you are never not going to be aware of the harms that our society at large perpetuate on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Raping her, killing her, not living in reciprocity with her. She loves us. She loves us so much. And the entities that are born into the meat suits, she has welcomed here. She says, yes, come to my garden, come to my beautiful home.
Yep.
And we are not, as a society, I'm using broad terms here. I'm using a very big brush, not a lot of subtlety, but the societal use of her as resource,
Mm-hmm.
rather than awareness of reciprocity of her sentient self. Those of us with earth sense first know this. We know this from the time we are small. Like, anybody I've talked to that has earth sense first, they all say the same thing. They're like, we just don't understand why people aren't aware. Like, how can
Yeah.
they How can they not be aware that she's screaming sometimes, or that she's singing, or that she misses our drums? She misses us communicating with her.
Yeah.
Our songs, our drumming, our connection through the seasons. She misses that. And we know that.
Yeah.
We know it. It's not a philosophy. It's not a random, oh, I read about it in a book idea. Like, this is in the cellular structure of how we interface with the world. Earth sense first, and we know the pressure and the weight, and we all have a communal understanding of this feeling of helplessness sometimes. That is, it's not depression. I got told once, oh, you're depressed. I'm like, no, I just want the farmer to stop.
Yeah.
I want the farmer that lives next to my trailer to stop spraying the bugs, because he's killing the bugs that are killing the birds. And I don't understand why people can't see that, right?
Right.
Like,
It's like this level of despair is the word that comes to
yeah,
me. Like,
yeah,
despair that some humans don't recognize their impact. Yeah.
right.
So something that's coming up I just want to highlight here is with Earth Sense First versus Earth Sense Booster. My gift package, because I'm me and I decided to do too much, because that was what I came here to overdo. I learned, Red. No, I learned in this lifetime that we're not overdoing it anymore. We've had talks. We're
Yes.
not overdoing it anymore. But anyway,
Yes.
I'm about as close as one can get with Earth Sense Booster to having Earth Sense First without having Earth Sense
You are.
First. And the biggest difference, because I can feel into that, like I could tip over there, but things would get squirrely because I didn't design it that way. I designed it as this equilateral triangle. But the big difference between Earth Sense First and Earth Sense Booster is that omnipresence of the gift, because we have to have a gift online to be here. Like we have to. So for those of us with empathy and Earth Sense Booster, or energy sensitivity and Earth Sense Booster, or like me who are trifecta and have all three, we can get cut off from that Earth Sense because we have another gift to default into. And so that's something I just really wanted to address is, like, for you, Red, you can't disconnect from the Earth Sense First because it is your gift. Versus like someone with empathy or energy sensitivity, they can't completely unhook from the empathy or energy sensitivity. It can become warped.
Yes.
But they can't we can't completely disconnect from our core gift.
Correct.
So for me and many people that I know with Earth Sense Booster, we've had that lived experience of having that deep inner connection with Earth herself, and then losing that at some point in time due to trauma, due to outside circumstances. And I know for me, like I very openly talk about being the little kid who like lived in the tree, because I just came in here as a little druid, and then I started going to public school, and then recess stopped. And it was like I didn't have time for nature anymore because I was, being forced into these other boxes. And I think that that's many people with Earth Sense Boosters experience, is that at some point in time, that gift became inaccessible. We were removed from it. We were pressured out of it. We had trauma around it. We went, oh my God, I'm weird and I need to shut this down, because why am I hearing the planet or the animals or the plants or whatever I'm hearing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot that comes into, for those of us with that Earth Sense Booster, how it gets shut down versus the crazy making experience. Because I know a lot of people with Earth Sense Booster too that have this experience of seeing the planet so under attack and just so in distress and so destructed that it hurts us. Those of us with Earth Sense Booster or Earth Sense First deeply experience a hurt when we tune into, I mean, when they told me I was going to have to chop the tree in my backyard down, I was like, no, how do I save this tree?
Right.
Like, I could feel the tree still had life, and the neighbor's looking at the tree going, you got to bring that down because it's leaning and it's not strong enough. And I'm feeling the tree and I'm feeling she's strong, but she's got some disease going on, and she does need a trim to make the neighbors safe. But I was like, I do not want to pull this tree down, because that's taking like hundreds of years old life usually, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like the
it is.
gravity of that is felt by those of us with Earth Sense. We feel the weight of that.
We do. We do. And Earth Sense First, I would say that we feel it as well. And I think what comes with us that I've explored it. I don't know how many others have. I think I know 2 other Earth Sense First who have explored it. The idea that I'll use a tree example, right? Like a diseased tree that somebody's going to chop down. Like if we know about it, we have this, I don't know how to explain it. We know how to help the entity of the tree find its way through the network into a new form without just cutting off the life without it being able to continue. Because I think the thing that Earth Sense First are aware of is that no grass, no tree, no flower. One of the reasons I hate people giving me flowers is like, don't give me dead things. Like, please don't do that. You don't know what you're doing. Like, that is literally a symbol of death to me, is to give me cut flowers, because you have done this indescribable, harsh thing where that flower, if it were living in the ground, it would be connected to the other life forces around it. Like, there is this quality of reciprocity and interconnection that those of us with Earth Sense First have. And I would say that the only time, so you know how we've talked about the shadow of like empathy and energy sensitivity, where it kind of goes into sociopathic or psychopathic behaviors, or, you know, or narcissistic behaviors, right? Well, there is no real shadow to Earth Sense Booster or Earth Sense First. So if you try to use your Earth Sense Booster for bad things, you won't have access to it. So, I mean, I've seen
Mama Gaia
people.
gives you the middle finger basically and is
Oh
like,
yeah,
nah.
no, no. She will not let you use that gift that she gave you for harm. So those of us with the Earth Sense First, I am sure we have all gone through it. I've only talked to like 11 of us that have it that can confirm, but there's a felt sense that if we should ever try to do something with our gift that was against that purpose, that connection, we would feel completely handicapped, like as though all the lights in the room have been turned off and everything is gray and fuzzy and not alive. I don't know how to explain it. I've had it happen a few times because I truly did have a horrible teenage years. Like my teenage years were awful. And I went through a couple of those times where I did not try to use my gift for good, is the best way to say that, right? And in that experience, I learned that it's immediate. Even the thought of trying to use my gift for harm makes me physiologically ill and uneasy. Like, you're getting to the edge of something you should not do. Like there's a huge warning cone in the street that says there's a pothole here. You kind of don't want to fall into that, right? And those of us with Earth Sense First have that. It's all, we know where the lane is, because anything outside that lane, we get a warning sign. We get that.
It's outside of nature.
It is. It is outside of nature. I'll use a really good example. So I sit in front of a computer all the time. I'm writing, I'm typing, I'm doing a lot of things with electronics. And I had a experience many years ago. This is with my first, like my own first home personal computer. It was a hand-me-down from my parents. They got a newer one, and I got mine for the household one for college, my first go around with college. And I noticed that when I set it up, I kept shorting it out. Like it kept, like I'd go to do something and it would go zit, nope, we're turning off. And I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And it took me a couple days to figure out that I had put the computer up in my because I was living in a trailer. I had put the computer up on the wrong side of the room from where a ley line was in the area. And it was close enough to the ley line that when my energy intersected with the computer, it shorted it out. And I was also doing, this is the early chat room time, right?
Oh, those days were a time. They sure
Right.
were.
So I moved the computer, and then there was a chat room that I was involved in, that I'd been involved in for a couple of years at that point. And there was this gentleman that I'd been talking with. I don't know, may have been a gentleman, may have been a woman, who the hell knows in a chat room, you can't tell. And I had been talking to them, and they had started asking me very uncomfortable questions. And I remember sitting in front of the computer going, I feel uneasy. Why do I feel uneasy? And it was a familiar sense, like you're going along the edge of something you should not be doing. And I got up, went outside, took a walk around the village that I was living in, came back, sat down, continued the conversation, and that unease came out. And I kind of ignored it because I wasn't sure what was happening. And the person on the other end, that person that was talking to me, said something, and that's when everything went gray. And I went, oh, it's the other person that's leading me down a line that is not in alignment.
Mm.
And even with electronics, I could pick up on it. And then my computer stopped. Like the whole thing went dead. It was like somebody had unplugged the computer. It was in that moment, that grayness, and then the entire computer went dead. So even with technology, Earth herself will go, absolutely not. You will not lead my gifted person astray. Like the gift itself, she herself in communication through me in the world will go, no. And it's happened in all kinds of things. I've been places, I've been in groups. I get every once in a while, I have somebody who says, Red, you need to not let people know that you're unhappy with their behavior or something, like, because everything shows on my face. And I am so unconscious of it. But sometimes there's a note in the room, right? Like somebody's out of alignment, and my body will react before I even conscientiously know that I'm picking up on harm. I'm picking up on something that's out of alignment with the earth sense first. I will, if given a choice and having the opportunity, I just exit from that space, right? Like I don't include that person that's creating that out of alignment, but I don't always know how to communicate that because it's so wrapped up in all of my being that I never want to get too close to those edges out of alignment, because it turns off. It's like the gift is just not available, and I am trapped in a meat suit that no longer gives me input on how to interface with other humans. That's literally what it feels like. So I don't
Yeah.
want to go anywhere near it.
That makes sense. And that, again, that's such an interesting experience, given like we always have our one gift online. You're always aware of the connection, but that you can be aware of the connection dimming down to like a point where it's like you don't get any of the rest of this until you find the alignment again.
Yes.
Right. And I think that, I definitely hear that for Earth Sense first. Like, and I can imagine how like deeply impactful that is. Because when I've tucked my empathy away, I feel so much less. Right. When
Right.
I pull my little energy bubble in, I feel so much less.
Mm-hmm.
So with all these gifts, we can go down to this fine point. But with the Earth Sense booster and first, it is this like deep, profound disconnection when that starts to get wonky or fade, because those of us with Earth Sense, whether first or booster, have a deep inner awareness that we're never alone
Yeah.
because we're connected to the planet. And that is
Yes.
such a beautiful thing. So in the moments where we are so out of whack, so out of alignment, that starts to get down to that pinprick, or in the case of booster, like shut down completely, like that's
Yeah.
it can be very scary. It can be very overwhelming. It can be very confusing because we otherwise have that connection so available to know that we're not alone.
I think I have a bio number 4 that I've been working with who has Earth Sense first, and her alone dialogue is somewhat different than other bio number 4s that don't have Earth Sense first. And the catastrophic impacts of being out of alignment with her Earth Sense first is I have had so many conversations with her where I can relate to that feeling of out of alignmentness. I don't have a better word for that, but it's when she's out of alignment, she will spin in her head, but everything is so gray. She's like, how do I get back into alignment? And she's in that early 20s where I was when I had come back on out of having been out of alignment for about 4 years. Like there was about 4 years as a teenager that I was in and out of alignment all over the place. Like I was a mess. I was a true mess. And I say that quite fervently without telling people all the details because you don't want to know the details. It was awful.
We both have that trauma story. Ugh.
Right? But she's kind of going through it in this late teen, early 20s time period where she's really struggling with it. And that aloneness is there from the 4, like how to be in relationships with other people. But the aloneness of being an individual absolutely alone in your meat suit doesn't occur to her because we always know.
Yeah.
Like we always know. How do you not know? And I mean, I think part of the reason that how much of what I learned about empathy and energy sensitivity is because I was absolutely hell-bent to try to explain to people that what I experience is not the same thing as what they're experiencing. And there are things I can't get to. I'm never going to be an empath. I'm never going to get it. I don't understand it. And Earth Sense First that have empathy do not have the tendrils, do not have those energy sensors or those empathic sensors, those emotional sensors that empaths have. They also, if they have the energy sensitivity with their Earth Sense First, their vibrational awareness is much more refined than a typical energy sensitive. I think that one commonality I've noticed in all the Earth Sense First energy sensitive empaths, right, is that there's always a knowingness from an Earth Sense First that your emotions are yours. There's never a feedback loop. They will never experience a feedback loop with you.
Must be nice, that part at least.
Yeah. I talk about my friend Kat all the time. She has both energy sensitivity and Earth Sense. She's Earth Sense First with empathy and energy sensitivity. I said that wrong the first time. And so she never has experienced that feedback loop as an empath, but her energy sensitivity is also much more precise and refined. And when we talk, we have noticed that people in the room kind of lose track a little bit, like almost like we skip things in the conversation because we already can feel it. There's like a telepathic connection between the two of us that is an undercurrent. It's kind of like watching two empaths have a conversation where the rest
that's
of
what
us
I
are
was going to
lost.
say. Like it seems similar in a way.
That's really what happens with Earth Sense First. You get a group of us together, and I don't know what that looks from the outside because we have the most amazing time. And I have learned to notice that we do skip things in conversation. We miss words that other people might need to connect because we get it. We get it from a Earth Sense perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So as an author, I have been exploring Earth Sense for a very long time, I've really realized. And in fact, the first piece that I ever published, this was before I even knew you, Red, the first piece I ever published won 3rd place in an international eco-lit competition. Of course, it was eco-lit, right? And it's the short story called A Gift of Gold, and it's about this person of unknown gender. I don't really get into who they are in the story, but they have a disability, they're out walking, and they're feeling the pain in their body, and they come across a yarrow plant, and the yarrow plant starts talking to them. And they have this whole like earth sense awakening where they're experiencing nature telling them what they need to know to nourish themselves. And that was like my tiptoeing into how the heck do I explore this in literature? And that was actually inspired by another book idea that had been living rent free in my head about sometime in the late. I hate how prophetic my books are. I just want to throw that in there because it was literally about like the late 2020s, early 2030s, and a logging expedition up in the northwest of the United States, which is too plausible now. I just want to throw that out there. My earth sense is very upset about this, but it's about this woman who moves with her husband who's doing this like, you know, tearing the land apart, and she's having these feelings of like, is this the right thing to do? And long story short, the mushrooms in the forest start talking to her. Like, and this is part of a larger series of people awakening to the planet, trying to scream at them. And then my sci-fi book that I'm getting ready to release has a main character that, when I think about it, in my head, she was a trifecta. And I'm
no,
like,
not the way you wrote her. You did not write her that way. So I got to read the first beta copy of this thing, and I'm going to tell y'all guys, everybody out in the universe, you totally need to read this book. It is epic. But that main character has earth sense first. There are a few tweaks that I have.
You put notes
to send you. I have put notes, but that character has that telepathic. It's a clear telepathic. It's not just a. There were other characters that you mentioned in your book that had that feeling of rightness, and that is more often what earth sense booster is to people. At least the way it's been described to me is there's a that feels right. You know, there's a rightness to it. Earth sense first is a totally, I mean, I say it, I don't think people hear me. I really don't.
I mean, again, with that experience of my unique trifecta-ness, and I obviously did this so I can help people translate and help the nuance. Like, clearly I did that. But like, I'm like one little notch away from going into earth sense first. And I've been on the edge of that type of telepathic communication. I think people with earth sense booster, like there are people who can get there and have that telepathic connection. That is not an earth sense first exclusive, but but the innateness and the knowingness is different between them. And like, I love just exploring the nuance and character, like through characters, how different people experience these things. And earth sense is clearly something that I had that missing language around until I met you, because those are the people I work with. When I think about the clients that I have, they're little earth sense booster or earth sense first people running around going like, why does the world not make sense to me? Why is there so much turmoil? Why are we pouring oil into the oceans? Why are we putting all this plastic out there? Why are we packing animals into little factory farms and slaughtering them like this? Like, there is this knowingness, and this has been a really funny part of my journey, getting into the garden more and really developing my earth sense. Those of us with earth sense, we do know that there is life and death and creation and destruction, and that on this planet there has to be consumption and unfortunately death for things to perpetuate. Hence, there's a difference between me going out though in my garden and taking the bugs off the plants with sticky tape and then trying to give them the quickest death possible because they're consuming my vegetables, versus spraying the Roundup that then kills the butterflies and it kills the bees and it kills the birds, and it probably doesn't do very good things for us in the soil anyway. Like, not great.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a quality of, I'm actually doing some research to rediscover things that I grew up kind of knowing, but I've forgotten it. So I'm trying to rediscover, like, where do I plant the marigolds? You know, what do I plant next to each other? What doesn't go next to each other? And the land that I live on is old riverbed. So like you go 2 inches down as rocks. It's very different than where I grew up, where it was dirt and clay. And what you added to the soil there was different than what I need to add to the soil here. So like last year, I basically navigated my way through getting a huge 9-yard dump truck of horse manure. And I spread it everywhere so that over the next 2 or 3 years, with cutting down weeds and letting them rot and tilling in, I'm going to create soil. I have to create soil from not having soil. And that's a whole different bag of worms than what I've had to do in the past. But it's also helping me slowly reconnect into growing things in this place that I've never had a garden here. Like, I've lived in this valley since 2006. I've never had a garden because the way life navigated for me, it was more around trying to figure out how to survive in this world that is not friendly to those with Earth Sense First.
No.
Just saying. This society, this world is not built for us. And I had to learn some things, right? Like, my blueprint I wrote clearly to learn some stuff.
We all did, didn't we?
And we all did, right? But now I'm in a place where the garden's really, really important. So I need to figure it out. I know there's places I can go learn. So I've been trying to connect them with library and garden groups and anything that's free because I ain't got no money. And I think this is the thing with Earth Sense First, is that we know kind of how to do something, but we don't know how we know it. And sometimes we can feel our way through it. It just takes us more time. And I can grow something from nothing in a very bizarre way, but I don't know that what the thing is that I'm going to get, what I should use it for, because that's where the disconnect is. I don't have any of the other gifts that other people have that tell them where to go with it, because the Earth Sense First is all about Earth. It's all about her. It's all about her ecosystems. So I don't have the interface that people with Earth Sense Booster have with what to do with it.
Well, that's a doozy of a thing, isn't it? And that's why, I just think it's tremendously important for us to remember that we all have different gifts for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that you're talking about Earth Sense First more now, because I've also experienced in the same way as being an empath, this like, well, I want to be that. No, you don't, because if you did, you would have picked it. You wrote your blueprint, my friend. So if you wanted it, you would have made a contract that allowed for that. So there's a reason that you picked your gifts the way that you did. And all of us are here with different gifts and different skill sets and different purposes and different missions, so that we can all be a part of that ecosystem. And that's what the earth teaches us, is the diversity of ecosystems, and that we thrive in biodiversity. We thrive with all of these different gifts and offers into the big pool of life. And, society tries to wipe that out. Society tries to smooth us into this perfect little cube to fit in a cubicle and do what they want us to do. And that's, if you have Earth Sense Booster or Earth Sense First, you're going to feel like, what the hell is that? Because that doesn't make any sense at the end of the day.
There's another quality. I wanted to go back to something you said a few minutes ago. I will say that until recently, and Safi, you know this because we talked about it, but I was not really willing to say out loud in the broader public, putting out in the world, I have Earth Sense First, for several reasons. Because there is this weird, takes the weirdness of who you are as an eccentricity type person and it amplifies it, because Earth Sense First is really rare. I know I use that word a lot, but I think that I'm not a mathematician. I have a friend that is a statistician. I have a hard time with that word. And he tells me all the time, he's like, if you were 12 years old before you met somebody with Earth Sense First, and you lived in a small town, and then you went to Germany, think of all the hundreds of thousands of people that you met and interacted with in Germany before you came back to the States, traveled across the States, and lived in three separately vast state places, right? So literally on 3 separate quadrants of the United States before I was 12. That's a lot of people to interact with in the world and never having seen, noticed, or met someone like yourself.
Yeah.
And then the person you encountered was an adult person at an airport and they wouldn't talk to you. And then you didn't meet another one until you were 17, 18 years old, right? So, like, that's a lot of people. And I traveled. So, we traveled to Colorado and Kansas and Alabama and New York City and South Carolina and Mexico. Like, I was all over the place in this world before I was 17, before I finally met somebody I could actually have a conversation with that had Earth Sense First, like myself. Now, he was older, he was male. It was a little weird. I admit, I probably freaked him out. I definitely freaked out the first woman. She didn't want nothing to do with me. Like, I knew it was a thing, but I couldn't. She dismissed me like, you're a 12-year-old freaky child. Go the hell
Why
away
are you
from me,
talking
right?
to
Like,
me?
she could not get away from me fast enough. But that's okay. I'm not mad about it. But there is something about the math of that. But there are 11, well, there are 10 of us now because one moved away. But there are 10 of us in a very small geographical area here in Montana.
Convergence.
Right? Right? Like, what does that mean? I don't know, but it has been it's only in the last year or two that I've been willing to even talk about the Earth Sense First. Part of it is because there are so many of us. To me, that having 10 people that I could just call that are local,
that's big.
For me, is a huge deal. Like, I can't even express how excited and tickled and actually amazed and all the things about this, but also still like, yeah, but what do we, and we're all sitting around doing it. We have a text thread that we share and we're all like, yeah, let's get together. Yeah, let's do that. But there's also this like, why is this important? I'm like, I don't know. I don't have enough information to tell you why it's important.
You need to get the Earth Sense boosters in the room to tell you what to do with it now. Like,
probably.
All right, all you Earth Sense Firsts, you give us the deep, nuanced information. We'll connect it to this larger level of society because we constantly have one foot in that with the Earth Sense booster, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
I think you do. And it's been uncomfortable to come out of that place because I've been attacked. I've gone through that weird hero worship, icky stuff that I don't know what that is. I've been invalidated. I've been told you're imagining things. I've been told, well, that's not a thing. I've been told, well, I have that. Well, I have that. Well, I have that. I'm like, yeah, because you have a booster and you've been practicing with it. You've been using it, but it's different. They're like, no, it isn't. I'm like, oh, okay. So I ceased to talk about it. I only talked about my energy sensitivity in relation to Earth Sense.
I remember those days, which is why I'm so excited that you're talking about it now, because someone else out there is like that and has never even had the language that it's a thing. And that's why it's so important that we talk out loud about these gifts and we explore the nuances and all of that.
My friend Kat actually found one on some kind of app. She was talking to somebody. She found one. They're south of us. I don't know, Utah, California. I'm not real sure, but she found one. She goes, I found one, Red. I found one like us. And I went, oh my God, that's exciting. So we do find each other. And when we find each other, we know it. And it's a very bizarre way. I mean, Kat came to me and she goes, I think I found one. I went, great. She goes, aren't you going to ask me like how I know? I went, well, okay. How do you know? And she was explaining it. I went, well, yeah, then that's the thing. Went, yes.
I love that.
Yeah, because it's exciting when we can find someone that's like us.
Heck,
because
anyone like us, right? Like,
yeah,
I just found a new empath friend the other day and I was like, yay, someone that understands that part of me. We love that sense as humans because we are communal creatures of having our community, of finding where we belong. We don't have to strive to fit in, but we can just be who we are. And with a gift
Yeah.
like Earth Sense First, that's wildly misunderstood, it's so beautiful to suddenly find somebody who can have that shared experience without you having to language. I mean, hell, it's like me over here, you know, this queer person who dates whomever I feel like dating, really.
Yeah.
And just the simple difference of dating somebody who also has a uterus
Yeah.
versus someone who doesn't have a uterus, and
Right.
the lived experience of what we don't have to language about because we just get it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why we seek these commonalities and want to find our common humanity. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to make sure we cover today. I think I just want to go back, and whether you have Earth Sense First or Earth Sense Booster, we've clearly talked it's a connection to the earth herself.
Mhm.
It can show up as connection to plants, connection to animals,
Yep.
connection to information sourced seemingly through the root system up into your body,
Yeah.
that you then get glimmers of what's happening out here. Like
It can
there's so many
be
ways.
it can be rocks. You know, one of the things that I noticed really early when my grandma and my great grandma, two different people, grandma, amazing. She would drag me to places and she'd go, here, feel this rock, right? Like she picked up really early. She goes, she never asked me. And this is what people don't understand. They hand me a rock and they're like, what kind of rock is it? And I went, I mean, unless it's one I know, I don't always retain the words because I
Right.
can feel what it will do
Yes.
more than what the name is.
Yup.
And there are neutral stones. There are artificially created and cut, but they still have the same mineral capacity. They can still be alive. So this is an alive one. And this one is a not alive one.
Mm.
So this one is chemically exactly the same as any of the other crystals it was made, but this one has no life in it. There's no actual, when I hold it,
It has no nuevra, to borrow a druid term.
A nuerva, yes.
Yeah.
This one has life.
Yeah.
And she's beautiful and she sings to me.
No.
And I have her with the other two that are alive. Now these are all grown crystals. They're not naturally grown in a cave like some of my others. These are manufacture grown. And I have them all sitting around this not alive. But what's interesting is I've been watching something happen. I don't know what's happening. But something's happening.
I feel like this is like the trees that you know, the one tree gets cut down or its roots
Yep.
get damaged, and the other trees come in and they're like, we're gonna help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about nature.
Yeah. So in Earth Sense First, I know a couple Earth Sense First people that they don't get as much communication from the stones, where I hear them, I know them, I pick them up and I know exactly what to do with the thing. My partner, who doesn't have Earth Sense First, he likes stones and rocks, but it's temperature for him because his empathy, he doesn't have an Earth Sense booster. So there's no like amplification. So he goes by temperature to tell him whether it feels right or not. That's how he navigates that because he knows it's a thing. He's had experiences. He knows it's a thing. He doesn't get the plant thing at all. But even an empath without an Earth Sense booster can learn to use his gift to connect. It's just wherever your venue is. What did you write into your blueprint? People write different things in. I can hear plants, whether they're happy or sad. It's a thing. I know when rocks are grown and I know when they're not grown, right? Like, how did you know that that was not a naturally occurring crystal, Red? How did you know that was grown in a lab? I went, because the ones that are alive are telling me where they were born. How do I explain that?
Well, the good news is, like, you know, I'm discovering more and more. I do feel like we're at a very interesting convergence point in society right now.
Mhm.
So many things are coming to the surface.
Yep.
And more people are coming to me and saying, thank you for talking about energy. Thank you for talking about empathy. Thank you for talking about earth sense. Thank you for talking about telepathy. Thank you for talking about these gifts, because I've been running around my whole life with this thing happening and no one else is talking about it. And And that is a very real thing.
Yeah, I actually had somebody ask me this question the other day, and I've sat with it, and I want to clarify. And I think part of the reason the question came about is any of you that have heard of telepathy tapes, I have listened to all of them. I think I'm current now, which I think is great because I know it's a thing, but I'm not allowed to talk about that in the regular world. But now people are talking about it.
Yes.
And there is this question that I was asked. So if you have Earth Sense first, does that mean you're neurodivergent? The answer is no, because I have met neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD people that do not have Earth Sense first. Some of them have Earth Sense booster, some of them don't. I've met very powerful empaths that are neurodivergent, and I've met very powerful empaths that aren't, right? I'm neurodivergent. I have autism. I have ADHD. I do have Earth Sense first. That's a whole basket of worms all by itself. I would love to be part of a clinical study to explore that. Because I think that's where that question came from. So you're neurodivergent, Red. That must explain why you have Earth Sense first. That is not, they are not,
They're not
what's the word?
mutually exclusive or
Thank you.
whatever. Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive. And this is the thing I think that if I can break down the barriers of what people's expectation of the mutually exclusive things are. For example, when we talk about vibrational themes, greens are here to teach us about interpersonal communication. So for a long time, I did the same thing that a lot of people did. I was like, well, they must all be empathic in some way. Well, I do meet a lot of green empaths. I do. But it's not guaranteed. I've met some greens that are about as empathetic as this rock. And stumbling around and not understanding that they can't make that be something that isn't.
Right.
With no Earth Sense booster either. So highly energy sensitive with no Earth Sense booster, with just that path. So we have to stop trying to say that there are very few rules with gifts, is what I like to say. You can have empathy driving the bus. You can have energy sensitivity driving the bus. You can have an equilateral triangle like you. I don't see that very often, but I do see it. You can have Earth Sense first that has more empathy, more energy sensitivity, less energy sensitivity. But the Earth Sense first is going to be Earth Sense first, right? I've never met anybody who's reached their maximum potential. I've never been told it by a guide they have reached the ceiling of their gift. So that's apparently not even a thing. And the combinations of choice that we have in our blueprint, the only rules I've ever found is everybody has a gift. Everybody has one. Never met anybody who didn't. Null voids used to, but they choose not to access it. And any of the Earth Sense booster or Earth Sense first gift, you cannot use that for harm. Mm-hmm. You can use your empathy to harm people and to become narcissistic, and you can turn into a sociopath with using your energy sensitivity to harm. Like, yes, those are things that can happen, but I have never, ever been validated ever with the question to Earth herself, can your gift be used to harm? And she's like, fuck no, you do not have access to that. Right?
Unless
like
it's in my sci-fi book. And then they can, but that's a whole other story.
That's a whole other story.
That's because Mama Guy is fighting back at that point. But you know.
So that's actually a good point. I'm going to clarify that. When I read your book, I was so excited because there is something about Earth Sense first. We cannot use our gift against Mother Earth, and we cannot use it to harm, and we cannot use it to interfere with free will. But all of us that have Earth Sense first also have a little bit of, you might want to call it a warrior thread in there. And that thread is a push. It's like a weighted push of truth. We will not bend. We will not fold in half, and we will not let you be comfortable hurting her. And that doesn't mean we're going to go out and shoot a whole bunch of people, right? Like you're probably not going to find an Earth Sense first with a gun in their hand doing things that feel off. because I don't think it can happen. I don't think it could really happen without that person just living in that gray place all the time. And I don't know anybody with Earth Sense First that likes that, because your
Yeah,
world
I
goes from this psychedelic, multicolored amazingness to, ugh. But there is a push, there is a drive, there is a absolute inability to buckle. You can call it stubbornness. You can call it, I don't know what words would be good. You could probably come up with several. But we can't go against the truth of her. So we can appear to be a little fanatical even with that. And it can be like we're stubborn and unwilling to bend and not willing to compromise, when the rest of the room is like, Red, you really need to compromise. And I've been in those rooms. I've been in the place where 15 people are like, Red, we need you to soften. We need you to compromise. We need you to see that there's other perspectives. And I'm like, and not in this. You are wrong. Like, I can't even prevent myself from just. And all of us with Earth Sense First have that. We have that. There's a little bit of warrior in there. It may not come out in that the same way your book does, but there is this, and we have a protective thing with that, right? Like, especially with the vulnerable. So I think it came out most when I was a little kiddo. Grandma already had the rule. If a rabbit came into the garden and it was wounded, we would heal it and then let it free. And if it got in a trap outside of the yard, then that would be food, right? Like she had prayers around all the traps, like only the animals that wanted to sacrifice themselves would go into the trap. Like there were rituals around these things. But I remember, much to my great grandmother's absolute chagrin, I remember going and seeing Charlotte's Web. My dad took me to see Charlotte's Web at the movie theater. And we had a pig. We had a pig that year. I did not eat pig for like almost 2 full decades after that. Like I could not make myself eat ham or bacon. Like it was awful. And I like pitched an absolute fit about that pig, to the point where great grandma gave the pig away. Like she had to get rid of the pig because I had this, I couldn't let go of it. I couldn't let go of. And we'd had a pig a couple years prior to that, but I think I was young enough and also not aware enough.
You hadn't seen Charlotte's Web and been called out viciously.
Oh, yeah. Spiders, pigs. I have a thing about spiders and pigs. Just saying. To the point where you call me out on it, I can't not see that anymore, right? I can't say I have never eaten pig, but I will say that at that formidable time in my life, when I'm very young, Earth Sense First is my only filter system. I was, and to put this in perspective, great grandma had a very strong will. Like, you did what she said, you did exactly as she asked you to do. She never punished. Like, it wasn't like a punishment, but you just knew you were going to do what grandma said, right? And great grandma was a force in the community. Like, she was a presence and a force. And I won that battle because she could not get me to bend. Like, and it was kind of a story that was told in the family, like, you're not going to get Red to eat pig. Like, you can chop it up and put it in a soup and hope that she will not notice. She can know when the bull gets in front of her. Because I had that this is wrong triggered in a ironically kind of cool way, like a movie triggered it, but it triggered it where it took me long time to untangle that. Okay, this is a childhood triggered piece of the Earth Sense First, and it's okay to unwind that a little bit and not be quite so. That's really not what you're here to do. It's fight for all the pigs, you know?
Yeah, it's so hard when we have whether it's Earth Sense First or Earth Sense Booster, and you're really
Yeah.
tuned into it
Yeah.
to see any destruction or to see genuine harm, because we know that things can be more in harmony and more in balance and more in the flow of
Mhm.
life, and we can offer energy and we can offer prayers and we can do this and we can do
Yeah.
that creates this interconnected web of life and death
Yeah.
that's part of this journey. And I
Mhm.
do think that, or sense people know that, like there's a different felt sense. So I hope
Super
this was
fun.
illuminating for someone out there listening to this, that you see yourself or someone you know, maybe a loved one who is a little bit fanatical when it comes to the planet, and perhaps they're accessing a different type of gift.
Yeah.
But thank you again, as always, Red, for having these conversations. And
Absolutely.
we're going to come back with a final part of this mini series,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about trifectas, which are people like myself who have all three,
Mhm.
and they're kind of playing together in their own little play sandbox of I don't know what the heck is what.
Yeah.
It's a fun time, but we'll talk about that, and then we're going to wrap out this season with 2 additional episodes on channeling and connection, and like
Yep.
what it looks like when we're either talking to guides or we're streaming in something else,
Yep.
and what the difference of that looks like. And then we're
Yep.
going to talk about our favorite topic, which is the shadow light dance journey thing, to
Yay.
wrap out this season. So thank you all for listening, for being along for the ride. If there are topics you want to make sure we cover, you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Let us
Yep.
know what you'd like us to talk about, because we're going to be collecting topics for next season too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm excited. This is going to be amazing. And thank you so much. I know we went a little longer than we normally do, but Earth
good.
Sense is kind of complex.
It is, and we got only into the surface levels of it. That's the thing. But
Yeah,
Red does
there's
have
a
a
lot to it.
manuscript coming out in the future that will talk about some more
Yep.
of these things and all of that.
And
So
your story. Oh my gosh, guys, you got to look for Safi's story. This is epic. I can't wait to read the next one. I'm actually really excited. I was like,
I know.
oh my God. Ugh, I got to wait.
Yeah, I know, because it's literally, I haven't even started page 1 yet. It's just in this everything's on pages
Yeah,
on my desk stage. So we'll get there. But
we'll get there.
all right, until next time, my friends, we love you, we see you, we're cheering you on. Take care of yourself, take care of the earth, and we're in this together.
Have a beautiful day, my friends. Blessed be.